Hi there, this is Stan Craig, and I'm glad to welcome you back this Wednesday for our Wednesday webinar. I'm really glad to be able to share these Wednesday afternoons with you, and I hope you feel the same. One of the goals of these webinars is not only to discuss the importance of net law and how it fits in your practice, but also to discuss things related to selling, to sharpen our selling skills. And so today we're going to really focus on both. Sharpening our selling skills, at the same time talking about how net law fills an unfulfilled need for most people, and then to look at a contemporary setting that makes it all the more available and all the more important and makes the public even more aware. So today we're going to talk about the wisdom of the Black Panther, which is really interesting to me because I found this movie to be really fascinating. So today we're going to talk about what every family must know and its wisdom from the Black Panther. How do you learn? Well, you learn with purpose. I mean, you have to think about learning all the time. Wherever you are and whatever's happening can be a learning experience. And so for me, sitting in the movie, watching the Black Panther with my wife, when I heard this particular character make this statement, I thought, wow, I've got to remember this. Because when we listen, it becomes a real important form of learning. That's why in school, remember, the teacher would say to me, Stan, are you paying attention? Stan, are you drawing pictures again? Stan, are you daydreaming again? Stan, are you thinking about Gloria? I mean, if you're not listening, you're really not learning. So I was always reminded by my teachers how important it is to listen in order to learn. In fact, when we see something, we learn. When we hear it, it adds to a second layer of learning. And then we write something down, it becomes real when we put it together. But hearing is really important. And so is paying attention. If you can't pay attention, you don't really learn. If you are married or you have a significant relationship, sometimes you're not paying attention when you ought to be. I know that too often. My wife will remind me. So if I'm not paying attention, I'm really not learning. So learning means that I'm listening, but I'm listening attentively. That's where my mind is focused. And then in order to really make it a learning experience, you repeat what was said. When I heard this character make this statement in the movie Black Panther, I turned to my wife and quietly in the movie said, I have to remember that line. That is a really significant statement by a significant character. And then I repeated to her, did you hear what he said, sweetheart? He said, blankety, blankety, blank. We'll come to that in a minute. But when you repeat what you've heard, it really makes a big difference. Not just hearing and saying, I want to remember that. You repeat it, and it's like the repeat cycle in your typewriter or on your word processor. It goes back and plays it again. Or like on your TV when you hit the rewind button. Repeating is so important, but the best thing to do is to do what I did. Not because I did it, because I've learned once you hear it and repeat it, you need to repeat it to someone else. That helps you confirm that not only is it important, but it is in a form that you can state to someone else and they understand it. It makes it really important. And then describe the value. Gosh, darling, did you hear what he said? I was paying really close attention. He said this. Then I repeated it to her. And then I said, you know what? This statement can make a huge difference with all of our advisors when it comes to talking to their clients. It's really important. In fact, as you know, it's so important that we're going to talk about it today. And then as soon as we got out of the theater, I went out, got a piece of paper, got one from the concession stand, and wrote it down. The reason is remember, learning is not only what you see, it's doubled by what you hear, and your retention is made even more important when you write yourself a note. I hope you've learned that, and I hope that while you're watching these programs, listening to these webinars, that you're writing yourself a note. Because learning is where you find it, and if you're attentive, there's always something to learn, whether it's from my pastor or from my children or from my wife. It's really important. But for us, we've enjoyed movies for a long, long time. And this year, there have been two outstanding standouts. You probably know that both of them came from the Walt Disney Company. The #1 movie for animation this year was Coco. It won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film. I hope you saw that film. If you didn't, I would highly recommend it. It's a story of a Mexican family, and it's a beautifully illustrated story with beautiful music in it. It was clearly the Academy Award winner. When you saw it, you knew in your heart that this movie is going to be the Academy Award winner because it touches every base. And the second movie this year, also from Disney, as you know, is The Black Panther. My goodness gracious, this movie's been amazing. It was a blockbuster even before it opened. And a lot of us weren't familiar with the character Black Panther, but goodness gracious, the story was so huge. And then the revenue, it's probably only second to what? The Star Wars movie, because it's just continually adding box office revenue globally. And the attendance, goodness gracious, it fills up theaters. And still, even when my wife and I went to see it not that long ago, there was heavy attendance in the theater, and the reviews have been stellar. Critics sometimes just beat up nearly every movie. Sometimes they like movies that the audience don't like. The Shape of Water. Critics loved that. Academy Awards gave it, wonderful reviews, and they made it an Academy Award-winning film. I have no idea what The Shape of Water is about. But man, Black Panther not only got reviews from critics, but it got audience reviews, 99% on sour apples and on popcorn reviews and on all those client reviews. It just did great. It's wonderful to see movies do that. And it's not only here in this country, but around the world, people have rejoiced at watching that movie. Why is that, do you think? What makes these movies so meaningful? Well, there's some of the same reasons that business grows. These movies are about family relationships. Both of those movies and the biggest movies of real success. For example, there was a small movie called I Could Only Imagine. It was a movie about family relationships. It didn't have stars. It didn't have a lot of PR, but it did extremely well. Why is that family relationships matter? Isn't it interesting that I Can Only Imagine, that The Black Panther, that Coco is about relationships between fathers and sons? I think there may be some built-in conflict or built-in areas that need to be resolved in father and son relationships, because if you think about it, those relationships are the story of so many dramas. We just had Mother's Day, but it seems that mothers don't have quite the conflicts and the relationships to manage as fathers and sons do. And then the story is also about relationships brother to brother. You may recall in The Black Panther, the main conflict was brother to brother. It was a conflict that led to not only family frustrations, but frustrations by everyone else who was available to see and to participate in that family relationship. The other thing that these movies had was love interests. It was fascinating to see the Black Panther's interest was a relationship that had ended before, but was being rekindled in the movie. In Coco has love relationships, not only necessarily with a girlfriend, but he has relationships with his grandmother, with his mom, with his dad, with so many, but there's love interests always applied. We love love stories. Most of us do, especially those that turn out correct, right? And that's the other thing. There's so much rivalry built into relationships. There was huge rivalry in Coco. It was an interesting sort of rivalry. It wasn't what you would expect. In fact, I think part of the reason that movie succeeded so well is it was unexpected. Every twist and turn was unexpected. In Black Panther, oh my goodness, you can't miss a rivalry, right? It's impossible to miss the brother-to-brother rivalry and the rivalries that take place within the kingdom of Wakanda as they're trying to determine who's going to really be the king of that country. And whenever you have rivalry, you have conflict, and conflict always works well in movies. I don't want that any in my life. You probably don't want it in your life. Most of us are those folks who want to avoid conflict, But when conflict is appropriate, sometimes it just creeps in whether we want it or not. I made it a part of my life to avoid conflicts, especially with the people that I love. Life's too short to get into conflict, but it makes for an interesting story. And in both these movies, Coco and the Black Panther, man, there was rivalry. And then there's loyalty tested too. To whom are you loyal? You think about this, that's a business question too, isn't it? To whom are you loyal? You really want to be loyal to your clients. At the same time, you want to be loyal to your firm. You want to be loyal to your leadership. You want to be loyal to your mentors. You want to be loyal to your family. And loyalty is a universal theme that touches us all. And then maternal support. The movie Coco had marvelous maternal wisdom. Sometimes it wasn't all that smart. The mother had one set of ideas that may not have applied to anybody but her. But the grandmother, the great maternal grandmother, she was an amazing character in that movie. And you remember in The Black Panther, the mom was an important character, a very important character. That's what makes movies click. That's what makes business click. It's what makes us all click as family relationships. And then there's the rescue and the ultimate victory. In Coco, there was a huge rescue of one of the characters. In The Black Panther, it was a huge rescue again. Those are just universal themes. And if you think about it, what we're doing when we are selling, particularly products in financial services, we're really bringing something to the rescue. One of the things about our family vault, and one of the questions I hope you learn to ask, is to say to your client, once he's bought and signed up for NetLaw, is to say to him, and by the way, we can put your guaranteed income in your vault. And when he says, what do you mean guaranteed income? Or you could say, we can put your guaranteed retirement income in your vault, whichever way works best for you. And then you can say, you don't have a guaranteed retirement income? Well, I have Social Security, I have a pension plan, I have an IRA. No, what I'm talking about is a guaranteed retirement income. That's what an annuity is. Isn't that correct? And an annuity is a guaranteed retirement income. And you know what that does? Man, that rescues you in retirement. The greatest fear that most of your clients have is that they're going to outlive their income. And that's why an annuity can be really important for rescue and for your client, bring an ultimate victory along. All of these movies are a hero's journey. A hero goes from, being at one level, coming down low, trying to fight his way back, trying to recover who he is, going through another struggle again, having a period of enlightenment, coming back again, falling one more time, then ultimately getting to the victory. Most all superheroes are the hero's journey. It's from Ulysses. It's which is that famous Greek myth. But the truth is, we all participate in a hero's journey, and that's what makes these movies so strong. But there's more. It's not just these things, but these movies brought something special. Man, there was a smart script. The script for Coco took you to a new place every time. And the script for Black Panther was beautifully written, beautifully written. It brought you into the story. It takes a great writer to do that. And do you know why that's appropriate for you? It's because you and me need smart scripts. To just talk is sometimes to go nowhere. Have you ever listened to somebody and you said, oh, he said a whole lot but didn't say anything? Gosh, that was a lot of words, but they just didn't make any sense. There's some people who talk and talk and talk and never make sense. You don't want anybody to say that about you, because you want to have a smart script. So when you're talking about your investment product, when you're talking about your firm, when you're talking about why you think this is appropriate, you want to have a smart script. And what does a smart script look like? Well, it has someone who can deliver it. Yeah, I told you before, as a financial advisor, I practiced all the time. I practiced to try to get the smartest things I could say that cut to the chase, and I didn't have to go beating around the bush to talk to clients. And it's so important. In this film, my goodness, the acting was terrific. Even the secondary players were outstanding. It was beautiful, a smart script, being able to deliver it really well. And this movie, Black Panther, had something going for it in science fiction. Science fiction are those movies that that are based on science, but they're fictional because they're looking at sometime in the future. And the great movies of the past, remember Jules Verne, that famous American writer, or British writer rather, who wrote Trip to the Moon, Voyage to the Moon. That was one of the earliest silent films ever made. And we still like them, whether we're Star Trek fans, which I am a huge Star Trek fan. I really have enjoyed that science fiction because science fiction takes us to a place where we can see a future created that we want to be in. Wakanda, my goodness, what a wonderful place. And the story was so interesting in that they appeared to be a third world country, but behind all that was a huge scientific advanced society. Science fiction, it has a great appeal. The other thing it had was great special effects. Goodness gracious, the special effects of that movie were terrific. And my wife saw the rhinoceros, yes, I said that correctly, with armor. It was amazing. And then when they came in later on in the movie, it was really fun to see. Then you have a relatable villain. I don't relate to a Transformer kind of villain. That thing just doesn't quite get it for me. But when it's a person who you can relate to, it becomes really important. And Black Panther had that, didn't it? And then it's an action adventure. I like plays that go somewhere, that movies that's moving somewhere. And what kind of somewhere? I want it to be family safe and rated correctly. Don't make any mistake. The reason that Coco and Black Panther were at the top of their game is because they were PG rated. There are more of us who are families who want to see safe entertainment with our children and grandchildren than those who are not. And I know there are others who have another audience appeal, but both of these movies were family safe and they were important. And everything begins with a script, right? So knowing a script is really critical. And it's critical in your business and mine as well, because then we know what to say. Gosh, when you make it up as you go, it just doesn't work. Can you imagine a movie without a script and the director says, so just talk. Okay, that sounds good. Now you talk. I hope that you've discovered that when you're marketing products, especially those that have a significant value to the client and those that have a significant value to you, that you know what to say, that you practice and know what to say. Another script does. A great script has the end in sight at the beginning. When the writer of the Black Panther script, and there are two of them who wrote the movie, when they start it, they know where they want the end to be. So they start backwards. Here's the end. Now, how do we get there? How to resolve the conflict? How do we deal with the hero's journey? How does it all begin? What happened in the past that brought to this? You have the end in sight at the beginning. And let me just say, when you're going to talk to your client about net law or really any other product, an annuity, a mutual fund, opening a retirement account, a life insurance policy, an income annuity, an indexed annuity, you need to know that that's where you're going, but you start with a question like I did. For example, what about your guaranteed retirement income? What about an income that's free from the ravages of inflation? You start asking those questions that take you where you want to go. You keep the end where you're planning to go in sight from the very beginning. And then you have to use correct word choices. This movie, Black Panther, had wonderful language. My gosh, the language was beautiful all through it. Every line in that movie was well thought out and well written. The correct words were chosen. And those of us who are in the selling business need to be able to use correct words. Find out not just a legal description or not just the portfolio or the prospectus language, but the language that relates to the client. And then we want to avoid dead spots. You know what a dead spot is? That's when you're saying, like I said, it's, it's like, man, those will kill your presentation. And I know how easy it is to get in those habits. One of my best friends, he comes up with a all the time. which gives him a pause, gives him a chance to think what's coming next. But for the client, it is as boring as you can be to put no periods. Instead of periods, put in these knows. And it's like I said, so it's just, you got to avoid dead spots. Can you imagine a movie that runs for 5 hours because it was mostly dead spots? That's the reason movies use the time well, because they understand how important it is. And then there's clarity in the content. You've sometimes read a movie review when the critic said, I didn't know what they were talking about, or this character came and disappeared, never came back in the movie again. We don't know why. You've got to have clarity in your content. So when you're discussing a product with your client, you want to have the wisdom that was in the Black Panther movie and have clarity in when you're speaking. Avoid any dead spots. Use the correct word choices. Know where you're going and know what to say. It makes a huge difference, because then the conversation becomes significant. You know, it's one thing to just talk. Hey, lovely day. Nice out there. What do you think of the weather? What do you think of the golf tournament? What do you think about these playoffs? Those are kind of nice, but there's nothing significant about that. The question is, Mr. Craig, I wonder, are you going to be secure in retirement? Do you have a guaranteed retirement benefit? Mr. Craig, you know, if your wife were to be left on her own, would you have the insurance that would let her take care of the family in the way you'd like that to be done? And these kind of words are really important, aren't they? And they're easy questions. They're not difficult to work into the conversation. You just need to have significant conversations, especially with your clients. And you know what that means? That means ending well. Coco had a wonderful ending. It was unbelievably wonderful ending. Black Panther went through all of its content, but then had a wonderful ending. We all want a script that's going to end well. And both of these movies had that. You want a sales presentation that's going to do what? Yeah, you want it to end well. End well for you and end well for your client. So here's the question. Remember last week I asked you to answer the question, what character in Black Panther spoke a line that directly relates to our business? And what was said that we need to remember? So I asked you, and I said, the one who gets that correctly, I will send you an autographed copy of my book, Foretalk, which is a book about all of end-of-life planning. In fact, everything that we do at Net Law is described in layman's terms, not legal terms, in my book, Foretalk, which is available on Amazon. But I'm going to send you a free copy of that. And if there's, I hope, lots of answers, I'll pick out the 2 or 3 best ones, or if they're all the same, which they should be, right? It was only one character who spoke this one line. Then I'll do my best to get a book to all of you, but we'll announce that next week. So what was said and what do we need to remember? If you answered correctly, I'm going to send you an autographed copy of Foretalk, the 7 Critical Conversations. So let's see what happened. Now I want you to know the clip, because here is the character in the movie speaking, and the character and the speech are so important. I want you to be sure that you hear and know exactly why this is important. So listen, this is a clip from the movie, and the character is about to speak.
I am not ready to be without you. A man who has not prepared his children for his own death has failed as a father. Have I ever failed you? Never.
Wow. Wow. The character is the former king of Wakanda, the Black Panther's Black Panther's dad. And this is the line. When he said this in the movie, I thought, wow, because it is so true. This is what he said. A man that has not prepared his own children for his death has failed as a father. Goodness gracious, does that relate to what we do every day? Certainly it does. A man that has not prepared his own children for his death has failed as a father. Now here's the question. Do you believe that's true? Listen, I've been a pastor for 10 years. I have been in financial services for 27 years. I've been working in the area of end-of-life planning with hospitals and businesses and others about how to prepare for this. And I can tell you there's nothing that I have read or heard that's more true than that statement. A man that has not prepared his own children for his death has failed as a father. Failure? What do you mean? Is that true? I guarantee it's true. Why? Because if a father dies without preparing his children for his death, there's no sense of direction. What would dad want? I don't know. He never said. And I've been in the hospital with families when the father was dying or had already passed away, and they didn't know what to do next. They had no clue. He had not done anything. In the 7 critical conversations, the one thing to first do is write down your letter of gratitude. Wouldn't it be great if when someone passes away, there's a letter there saying, here's what's been important to me, and I hope it'll be important to you. You have to have a sense of direction. Otherwise, it's just a black hole that your family will fall into. And then there's no guidance for the future. What comes next? What do I do with the bank accounts? Do we have an insurance policy? Do we need to transfer? The house is no longer in your name, Dad. Whose name is it going to go into? How are we going to solve that? There's no sense of direction. A father who has not prepared his own children for his death is a failure. And children who find no sense of direction, no guidance, no plans for tomorrow, know what a failure that is. It's hard to say bad things about your dad or your mom, but I will tell you, I have heard people say more than once, gosh, if only mom had. Gosh, if only dad had. Gosh, if only. That's just simply says, if they hadn't been such a failure, we wouldn't have had these problems. And then there's no leadership. Who steps in to fill the void? Well, mom says, it could be mom, but if the older son says, no, mom, that's not right. Or if the younger son says, wait, that's not right. Or if the children, 2 of them, say, well, we think it's this. Listen, that's a tragedy. That is failure of the father when there's no one who can speak for you. That's the reason it's so important what we do. And then no love expressed after death. You know, writing my letters of gratitude to me was one of the best joys ever. So when I pass away, the first thing my wife will read, because I'm telling her to, a little list from the 7 conversations, is to read my letter of gratitude, where I thank Gloria for the life we've shared together. It's 39 years that we were married on Friday, last Friday, and 40's coming up, and they've been great years because of my wife. But I've written letters to my children, to my grandchildren, and to my unborn children that will come in later, great-great-grandchildren, telling them what's been important to me in life, what's been important to me, the values that I have, and the prayers and the hope I have for them in the future. That expresses love after death. Listen, dads, we got to do this. You got to do this. The other thing is it shows that you just seemingly didn't care. You know that you care. You know that you want your family taken care of and love expressed after you die. But it isn't enough to hope for it. You got to put feet on those hopes. You got to put words on your thoughts. You have to make it real. You have to tell them how much compassion you had for them, because you are taking away the hard things. You have a will. You have a durable power of attorney for finance so someone can make financial decisions for you. You have planned a funeral or memorial plan. You have written letters of gratitude. If you've done that, your family says, and I've heard this before too, my mom was fantastic. My dad did everything for us. We didn't have to do anything but shed some tears at his passing and rejoice at how he expressed his love for the family. Not because of all the stuff he left us, but because he showed how much he cared for us and the stuff that he did before he died. Man, you don't want to be a failure. And the way you do it is thinking about what's to come next. What will come next after you die? Period. That's it. What will come next after you die? What? Well, I want people to know what's going to come next. That's what net law does. That's why it's accessible even on a cell phone. If the dad fails to prepare his children for his own death, conflict comes. There's one thing about conflict in the movies. It's really not good when it's in your house, right? Conflict in the movie we can watch and, hey, that's exciting. But when it's in your family, it's depressing. It is really sad. Or if there's a misunderstanding, mom said dad wanted this, the son said dad wants this. All of a sudden, people are arguing. And in my brother's case, my brother didn't have a lot, but he had a pickup truck he'd restored that he loved. When he passed away, he had nothing written down, as you know. That's the reason I got so involved in end-of-life planning. But he had two sons. One son said, hey, dad told me I would have his pickup truck. His other son said, well, wait, I thought dad wanted me to have it. That's what he told me. Then my other brother said, wait, that truck is mine. I'm the one that financed that truck. I'm the one that helped him get the money for it. Gosh, why did somebody think of this before? Because they just didn't. A man who fails to prepare his own children for his death is a failure as a father. And in many ways, we all have experienced that. Then there's a lack of confidence in each other. Financial difficulty comes. Who's going to pay for this? Do you know when somebody dies, you got to write a check to a funeral home, whether it's for a burial service, whether it's for a cremation, whatever kind of thing happens after death. As soon as somebody dies, somebody has to write a check. And that number can be far bigger than you think. The average cost in America is $9,000 today for a funeral. Even a cremation, costs are still way up high because they've realized how they can charge for it. And the problem when those difficulties come, they become generational. And it's passed on and passed on and passed on and passed on. I was with a family last weekend, and one of the members of the family, the wife, was saying how lonely they are at their old age. It's not really that old, but they don't have family or friends. And I said, well, I know your mom's in a nursing home, but what about your husband's family? And then she said, his dad, for some reason, stopped talking to his two brothers and sister years ago. I don't even know who they are. He doesn't even know who his uncles are. He doesn't even know if he has nieces or nephews because the family broke up over something. Wow. So that means he broke it up. His children's generation are suffering, and the generation to come will never know anything about their family members, and generational disagreements will go on. Now, my guess is what happens to his dad was something that happened in the generation prior to that. Gosh, it just leaves things so empty. And I have great dreams for my family. Every father should, but they get messed up if a father doesn't prepare his own children for his death. The same is so true today as it was in the time of the Black Panther, or should I say in the future for the Black Panther. You know, who is not prepared? Well, about 6 in 10 Americans do not have a will. That means that 6 out of every 10 people you talk to do not have a will. And that's something you can help with really easily. You remember, you don't have to be licensed to sell the net law product to make that available to your clients. And 6 out of 10 don't have a will. Let me just tell you this, there's probably not 6 out of 10 who don't have a mutual fund or don't have another financial product, but I'm guaranteeing you they don't have a will. 81% of those over 72 do have a will, because those of us who are older understand that, this is something I need to do. You probably don't talk to that many people over 72, but 58% of baby boomers, that's 53 to 71, don't have a will. Whoa, that's almost 6 in 10 again. Do not have a will. So when you're marketing to those 53 to 71, you are marketing to a group that is your target market. That's an important group to target, are the baby boomers. What about those younger? Well, 64% of Gen Xers, that's 37 to 52, they don't have a will. Golly, that's tragic. And you know what most of these people do have? Children. Even though they're having children later, most families, 32 to 52, have at least one child. And without a will, they have no direction. The father hasn't prepared his children for their future. And if they're under 18, as they still could be, then the guardianship becomes a real issue, because in the will you state who you want to be guardians. And then millennials, oh, don't even go there. 78% of millennials, 18 to 36. Does that include anybody on this call? Probably. do not have a will, but have children under 18. Let me just tell you, when I'm doing a public seminar, I tell those in the audience, if you have children under 18 and you don't have a will establishing their guardianship, then you are guilty of child neglect of the worst kind, because you can't change what's going to happen if you're gone. You have to have a will if you have children. But a father who doesn't prepare his children for his death is a failure to his father, failure to being a dad. Just over 50% of Americans have a durable power of attorney for health care. Why is that important? More than 50% of us are going to be in the hospital, probably close to 100%. And you need to have this durable power of attorney for health care, because not all of us are always conscious when we're in the hospital. We could be unconscious when we're taken in, unconscious due to the treatment. We know we'll be unconscious with anesthesia. We know that there are a lot of things that can make us not capable of making decisions. That's why this is so important. You have a huge market. Why is that the people haven't done this? Here's what they say. Well, I don't see the need. I don't really need a will. I don't really need an estate plan. That means you haven't thought through it. Do you think you'll be going to the hospital at any time in the future? Is there a possibility that you will? Then you need the medical part of an estate plan. And you need that today, because you could go to the hospital tomorrow. You need your living will, your durable power of attorney for health care. You need your HIPAA authorities if you want your wife and the people you love to be able to check on your condition if they're not there, if they're calling on the phone. Even if they come in and want to ask for a visit and you're intensive care, cardiac care, or another type of care that's in isolation, they can't tell them anything without a HIPAA authority. And an estate plan, really important. If you want to protect your assets from one being publicly announced and then from what can happen in probate. They just don't see the need. And then they don't know what's required. An estate plan sounds really big. That's the reason you hear me break it down to three things: the medical part, the financial part, and the beneficiary part. The medical part says, here's what I expect to happen to me in the hospital. The financial part says, here is what I expect to happen with my assets. And the part has to do with philosophy, and beneficiary says, here's who I would like to benefit after I'm gone. Just divide the estate plan up into three things: net law MD, net law financial, which is the estate plan, and net law philanthropy. All those three are tied up in the net law estate plan. Here's what I want to have happen when I go to the hospital. Here's what I like to do with my assets. And here are those who I'd like to bless, those who'd like to benefit when I'm gone. Most of them think they don't know where to start. Well, start with the hospital stuff. And others say, oh, this is going to cost too much money. You know, it's really cheap when you do it through net law, and you can even pay it over time. What a great deal. Part of the reason, though, is some people have family issues they don't want to face. Some people are married to people they don't want to be married to, and they don't want to give them anything. Boy, is that sad. Some people not going to treat their children all equally, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. Some people have more assets than they want other people to know, and they don't want to talk about it. Gosh, family issues they don't want to face are the worst issue possible for not doing this, because after you die, all those things are going to be public knowledge. Everybody's going to find out that you didn't treat so-and-so fairly, that you had something else happening in your life. You got to step up and get this done, because if you leave that mess behind, you leave a mess behind that nobody else can clean up. Many people just aren't aware that the healthcare decisions are vital. I mean, an estate plan, I don't need an estate plan. Well, wait a second. Do you think you might go to the doctor this week or to a hospital anytime for the rest of your life? Then you need to get these medical documents in order, or you can receive treatment that you do not want, that may even be harmful to you because you haven't signed these documents. And that's the truth. 6 out of 10 people you speak to need your service. In the category of those 72 and over, the majority has a will, but these baby boomers, Gen Xers and millennials, they've neglected the very basics of estate planning, the very basics, which is the medical stuff. Gosh, do you know why what you do is important? Because everybody out there who doesn't have this done needs to hear from you for their own well-being. and for the well-being of their family. They need to hear from you. And they need to know if they have done, if someone says, oh, I already have a will, I already have that done. The next question is, when was it last updated? And the next question is, have there been any changes since you did that? Have there been changes in your family? Any change in your personal life since you did that? Because the truth is, they're not up to date. People do it and put it in the background. Hey, I graduated from high school. I don't need anything else. The truth is, boy, oh boy, if you did a will a long time ago, there have been changes in your life. Do you have a will, and is it up to date? What you do is really important. And I'm so glad that how valuable NetLaw is to your business. You're providing a solution that provides great economic benefit for a small economic outlay, and you're solving a serious problem. Plus, you're doing your best to be sure that failure is far removed from this family's discussion, right? A father who does not prepare his own children for his death is a failure as a father. A man who does not prepare, a woman who does not prepare their own children for their death is a failure. Gosh, you don't want that to happen for anybody that you care about. You don't want it to happen in your family. You don't want it to happen for anybody who you see and know. That's why this is really important. And by offering a complete estate plan, you solve tons of problems. And people say to me, I want to Stan, why couldn't I just do this at Rocket Lawyer? Why can't I just use LegalZoom? Why can't I just use, and you fill in the blank? The reason is, this is the plan that's been recognized by the American Bar Association for excellence in online plans. None of those other people have that. Why? Because the American Bar Association only recognized this estate planning organization. Could they have recognized others? Why, of course they could have, but they didn't. That's because these plans have been prepared by a firm that just does one thing. That's all Hargrove and Madden do, is they are estate planners. They work with multimillionaires and others to prepare estates and do the very same thing. Now, all those documents have been put into the pool, so all those documents are available right now on NetLaw to save your clients a lot of money and to save them a lot of grief. And the good thing is, it not only includes the estate plan. It's one thing to have a plan, right? It's another to be able to access it. Gosh, it's online, it's digital, you can get it anytime. And then you have the ability to change it when life changes. Goodness gracious, life is all about change. If you haven't updated your will, your durable powers of attorney for healthcare, your living will, your durable power of attorney for finance, your HIPAA authorities, man, that's important. We just moved to Florida. All we have to do is type it in, put our new address, we get our whole new plan for Florida. We now live next door to well, not next door, but in the same town in Jacksonville as our son and daughter-in-law. Well, now I want my daughter-in-law on the HIPAA authorities. Just go in and change them. That's why what NetLaw does is so important. You pay for it once, you continue the $8 a month to update the plans to have them always accessible, and it makes a big difference for every family. Golly. NetLaw allows you as a financial professional to ask questions to be helpful to fathers and everyone else in the family. What NetLaw does is when you open the NetLaw account and you start talking about the vault, you just simply say, sir, you can also put your wife's life insurance in the vault. She doesn't have life insurance? Well, you can also put your child's college savings plan in the no college savings plan. What about your guaranteed retirement plan? I mean, it allows you to ask these questions by assuming that they have what you're ready to offer. And what you're ready to offer things to solve problems. NetLaw is just so important. It's so easy. It's continuous access to some of the most important documents a family will ever create. It's one thing to have them locked up in a file drawer. You know what a filing cabinet is? You've heard me say it's a place where you lose things alphabetically, right? That's what a filing cabinet is. It's a place where you lose things alphabetically. It's just terrible. I have no idea what's behind door C or folder F. I just don't know. But with NetLaw, my goodness, the accessibility is right there on a smartphone. It's right there with any electronic device. And that's so important. That family vault, man, it holds family treasures. You can put in poems, put in the Mother's Day card you got for Mother's Day. We watched a television show, American Idol, and these idols were reading letters they wrote to their mothers, and their mothers were tearful about them. What do you do with a letter like that? Well, I fold it up and stick it in the drawer. You did what? You folded up and stuck it in the drawer? Yeah, you won't ever see it again unless you open that drawer and remember what that is. That's why Family Vault, you can put those personal notes in, the photographs, anything you can scan, you can put in the Family Vault, and everyone can have access to it. It's a wonderful thing. You know, smartphone accessibility, wherever these documents are needed, is critical. And NetLaw is now working on an app for any smartphone. In fact, it's already in its testing stage where anyone has a smartphone will download the NetLaw app. It says My Vault, and touch the button and open the vault. And then the folders are there for you to look at financial records, health records, family records, medical records, family photos. All those things are going to be there. And that's going to be wonderful. No extra charge. It's part of the 8 months. Gosh, I'm so pleased about what we're doing, because I want you to remember that a man who has not prepared his own children for his death, he is a failure as a father. Isn't that true? And I want you to be the one who solves that problem. And the good thing about this is when you're solving this for families, guess what? Well, you're building relationships. You're the one who's providing solutions. You're the one who can get the referrals, and you're the one who gets paid for doing this service. That works out pretty well as far as I'm concerned. Pretty well. Well, we're glad that you're here. All of us are pleased, and I hope that you'll know that Mark and Vanessa and Mary are here to help you. And I hope you check out Step 6. It's a downloadable app. If you download that right now, you can even show a video that explains much of what I've been talking about to your client and use that as a prospecting tool. Or you can call 1-888-604-4789. because that's where we are waiting to help. Thank you so much for being a part of today. I do appreciate it so much, and I hope the wisdom of the Black Panther will stick with you. Gosh, it sure has with me, as you can tell by listening today. Well, I'm Stan Craig. I appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to next week. That's going to be fun. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.